Hi, everybody. For those of you who are tuning in to my very first Monday night show, tonight I am talking about guilt, and I'm not just talking about any old guilt. I'm talking about unnecessary guilt. You know, guilt is a part of life. We don't always do things that we're proud of, but this is unnecessary, lasting guilt that makes us feel like we are being strangled, like we can't breathe because we feel like everything that we do is wrong. So I wanted to just put in perspective who I am and why this is a topic that is important to me to talk about. If you are joining this, you know that I have a business, Coaching with Dahlia, and I really help people who, especially women, who are going through big life changes, and I help them free themselves up to have hope and to really make themselves a priority and to fill their cup. And one of the things that really stands in the way of that is, you guessed it, guilt. Now I'm Jewish. We know I'm Jewish. I'm a rabbi, and you know, guilt is in our DNA. What do you mean I shouldn't have guilt? But I think that guilt is one of these things that when it is perpetual and it sticks with us, then we lose quality of life. You know, the past few months, I had been living with a lot of guilt. I um, I was having a ton of headaches by I would say maybe the second or third week of the pandemic when we were all sheltering in place. And at the same time, I was feeling incredibly guilty and stressed out that I wasn't doing more and more and more for everybody in my family and in my community. And this guilt, this responsibility that we take on ourselves that is above and beyond, that makes us feel like we're never doing enough. That is what strangles us, that we are never doing enough. And that somehow it's our responsibility and we are letting everyone down. So, so I want to talk about that guilt because I think that we take it on ourselves when other people aren't putting it on us. And for me in particular, in my life's journey, um, I have taken on a lot of that guilt that I just don't need, and is not helpful. So what we're going to do is, for me, I want to talk a little bit about how this has affected me and ways that I was able to shake it off a little bit. And then I'm going to go into 3 tips that you can use to really break free of this unnecessary guilt and live with more freedom in your life, that freedom from guilt. So when I was contemplating getting, I'm just going to jump right in, contemplating getting divorced, um, I had an incredible amount of guilt um, inside of me. And the feeling was, how can I do this to this person who has been with me for so long? How can I do this to my parents who all they want is, um, they want grandchildren. What if I'm messing that up for them? And what kind of a rabbi does this? And I felt awful, so much so that it took me a lot longer to get to a place that I needed to get to, which was that this was the right decision for me. And sometimes guilt actually is the piece that clouds our judgment, that if we didn't have that piece, we would be able to see a lot more clearly. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I've never done this on Facebook before. So we're going to, let's see if I can do this at the same time. I'm not actually sure if I can do this at the same time. So, okay. So we're going to start with a couple of different ideas. So when that too much guilt that we were talking about is when we ruminate on how we've hurt people or let them down or let ourselves down. Or I don't know if you're like me and it's the evening and you're trying to go to sleep and you're saying, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. and um, and you start judging yourself. I'm so disorganized. I don't work hard enough. I'm not as giving as I should be, and we start to feel like we can't do anything right. We start feeling like no matter which way we go, we we can't succeed. We can't be good at anything because we're trying to be perfect at everything. And so there's one word that I want you to never say. This is the first tip. And this one tip can shift your entire world. I promise you. If you eliminate this one word from your vocabulary, then your life will change. And that word is the word should. The word is should. I should be able to handle this better, right? We say, I should be able to lose that weight. I should be able to keep a house clean the way they do in Martha Stewart. I should be able to do this all by myself. I shouldn't be so upset. I shouldn't be so sensitive. Oh my God, do I feel that all the time? I shouldn't be so sensitive. And we say this all day long. I should be more like them. I shouldn't have to take this medication. So in the coaching world, we say to our clients, stop shoulding on yourself. Stop saying should all the time. It makes you have this ideal of what you should be. And anything that falls short of that, makes you feel incredibly guilty. And what we need to accept is that we are human. As much as we wish that we weren't and that we were perfect, we are human. We are human. And we can have aspirations to be better at time management and portion control and all of these things. Those are aspirational. That's the North Star. That's what we're going for, and that can guide us. But when we say the word should, we are locking ourselves into only one thing being acceptable. And in fact, that's quite limiting. So if you eliminate this from your thoughts, it will transform your feelings. I promise you. And guess what? You may even be able to get closer to that thing you want the moment you let go of should. Just let go of should. And when you can do that, you will be able to find more freedom. So instead of saying should, you can say, I want that. I want to be able to lose that weight. I want to be able to have a home that I'm proud of. Not that I should be able to. I want to live with more anxiety. Rephrase. I want to live with less anxiety. And instead of saying I shouldn't have to take a prescription, you can say, I want to be able to manage my anxiety on my own. And then there's a form of acceptance there. Acceptance of being human. So moving on, the second tip that I want to share with you is just this concept of no negative emotions. That we're talking about guilt. And even though I'm saying that there can be too much guilt, that's really just an awareness of how guilt is playing its role in our lives. So to be able to say actually that if you feel guilty at any point, if you are ruminating, you don't have to beat yourself up, right? We beat ourselves up, guess what, for beating ourselves up. So no emotion that we feel, whether it's guilt, whether it's anger, whether it is happiness or joy, none of those are superior emotions. If you're like me, you hate those sad feelings. You hate the anger. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. But we also can't judge ourselves for feeling those feelings. It's not helpful. It doesn't do anyone any good. So instead of spending all of this time beating ourselves up and especially if you're like me, if you have issues with anxiety, um, I I criticize myself for having anxiety, and I criticize myself for feeling guilty when I've done something, or I've said something. You should be able to get over this. There are no negative or positive. It's just a matter of looking objectively. I'm feeling guilty. And then it comes to my third question and my third tip, which is asking yourself a question. What can I learn from this feeling? That's the question. What can I learn from this feeling? So, whatever the feeling is, right now I'm talking about guilt. It could be anything. It could be anger. It could be, you're feeling indignant about something. Someone you feel completely disrespected, and whatever it is. But today we're going to talk about guilt. So, you ask yourself, what can I learn from this feeling? And if you want to get even more specific, what can this feeling tell me about myself or the situation? So, let's say you're a teacher, you're working with a student, and you forgot something, or taught the wrong thing, and you feel incredibly embarrassed and you feel incredibly guilty. How could I do that? Um, you can completely beat yourself up so for the rest of the week. Um, Or you could say to yourself, okay, so why am I feeling so guilty about this? I'm feeling guilty about this because I take pride in my teaching. I'm feeling guilty about this because I care about my students. I'm feeling guilty about this but the moment that you say the word should, that's when you start to derail and you lose that openness that we're looking for, that freedom. So, what can this feeling tell me about myself or the situation that I'm in? Let's apply it to another situation. So, if we're going to go back to me, um, when we're feeling guilty, we have a hard time thinking about anything else. We can't even think things through. So, when I was contemplating a big life shift, when I was contemplating ending a relationship I had been in for 13 years, 13 years. And I felt like I was letting everyone down. Um, that's when you start asking yourself those big emotions. You have to start asking yourself, well, what can this emotion tell me and teach me about myself? And when I was feeling guilt, you know, well, what am I taking on my shoulders that I don't really need to be taking on my shoulders? Um, and what's important to me. So it's important to me to take care of other people. It's important to me to be loyal. When I was thinking about ending something, ending that relationship, ending that marriage. I was thinking it's important to me to take care of other people, and to make people feel loved. And I was feeling so guilty because I knew that I was going to cause someone harm, um, and I was feeling awful. So once I was able to give myself some wiggle room and some curiosity, then I was able to learn a little bit more about myself and about what I really wanted. But sometimes you need to step out of that. So we have three tips. The first tip is to avoid the word should. Avoid shoulding on yourself. But if you do find yourself doing that, don't beat yourself up. If you're feeling guilty, if you're feeling like you should be doing everything, then, you can say to yourself, okay, this is how I'm feeling. And instead of um, labeling something as bad or good or a negative emotion or a positive emotion, we can just say, I'm feeling blank. I'm feeling guilty. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling like I could have done more. And naming that is really important. Naming that emotion, and not judging it, just saying what it is. And number three again is asking, what can I learn from this feeling? What can I learn about myself? And specifically, what is important to me? And when we can do those three things, when we can, accept that this is how we're feeling, if we can avoid saying the word should, and we can ask ourselves what we can learn from it, where the opportunity is to learn about ourselves, then I'm telling you, you're going to be ahead of the game. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining me. And again, I have a coaching business. I specifically work with women above the age of 30 and who are going through big life changes and need support to help themselves make themselves a priority, and to take care of themselves. We are so bad at compassion sometimes. So thank you very much. And please check me out on daliabernstein.com. We all have websites now, and leave a comment, leave a message. I would love to hear from you. So take care, everybody. Have a good night.